Welcome to Holy Grit Leadership That Lasts, the podcast for leaders who are done with fluff and hungry for depth. Hey, listen, if you're looking for more than just quick wins and shallow strategies in leadership, you're in the right place. We're talking bold, ethical, and effective leadership fueled by timeless truth from scriptures and built to withstand the pressure of the real world. Okay, now listen. Whether you're leading a church, running a business, managing a team, or just trying to hold your life together on Monday morning, Holy Grit Leadership is here to help you lead with courage, clarity, and conviction. Listen, this isn't your grandma's Bible study, unless she was a total boss. Let's dig in, let's lead well, let's build some leadership that lasts. Okay, it's time. Episode 13, we have made it to part 2 of our Leaders in the Bible. Last episode, we recapped Moses and Jesus.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And I would say that God really used you on that one because you were really spinning some yarn there. And so this time I'm gonna just rely on the Holy Spirit to use me to spin extra yarn to at least look better than you in this.
Yeah. Well, you said I looked like a break dancer.
Okay, so doesn't he? So if anyone's looking at him, he's got this New Hope hat on, which is cool.
Yeah.
He's got the old school Nike shirt, and we're part of the jam gang, so we got her going. So
I've never been called a break dancer ever in my life. So
it's the first time for looking like a break dancer. Everyone goes through that phase, right? Just trying to be cool. Okay, so today we're gonna first talk about our beloved teams. So this upcoming week, I want to hear your prediction. Colorado is playing who?
Iowa State.
Iowa State's coming out.
Or I should just say it doesn't matter.
Well, you did say they're going to go 6-0 to finish the season.
Yeah.
Okay. So Colorado, the Buffs, who have a new Buffalo to run. No longer. Is he still named Ralphie?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's always Ralphie, but this is a new version of Ralphie.
Have you seen him?
Yeah, the new one. The last one, oh my gosh.
He was the first.
I was like, get the hot shot out. But the problem is that the liberals in Boulder might have fainted, animal cruelty. And I'm saying, get that hot shot out.
Well, the new Ralphie shoots out like a cannon.
Yeah.
Well, those guys and gals that run with him have got to be like Olympic sprinters because that new Ralphie is ready to go 6-0.
I know that. Yeah.
So you're predicting Colorado. What the score is going to be?
It's going to be Colorado has shown flashes of greatness.
Okay.
And I'm going 34 Buffaloes and 10 Iowa State.
Blowout. Okay.
Yeah.
Dion just got hot off of blood clots. He's got he's back in action
for him. Yeah.
And so, but my Huskers, I will tell you, we traveled to Maryland, to take on a bunch of wussies, and they're 4-1. We're 4-1. We're gonna show them what a real 4-1 team looks like. Here's gonna be the score. We're not a big blowout team. We like to keep it close for entertainment purposes. So it's probably gonna be. I think we're gonna go 27-21.
Okay,
27-21. And it's going to be a great game. But
now I'm going to predict your game. I don't care if you predict.
Tell me what you think.
Okay. Now, Maryland is a sleeper cell. I'm telling you, those guys, they almost beat Washington.
But they're still sleeping, though.
And so I'm going, even though I hope the Huskers win, I think they're in trouble. 28-21 Maryland.
Oh, you're going reverse almost on me. Okay. Well, to be honest, I've seen what the Buffaloes can do. You said they have flashes of greatness. I don't know how 2 wins can really do that for you. But I'm going to say that the Buffs, Iowa State's on a comeback game. They just got upset.
They got hammered.
And they are going to come back with a vengeance. And I'm assuming all Iowa State has teams have a fullback, just guessing because I'm assuming I'm going to see a fullback touchdown, and I'm going to see a quarterback have probably less than 150 yards passing and still beat Colorado. So I'm just going to let you know. Okay, so that's my prediction.
Okay, all right.
So you're going to lose anyway. So today we are jumping in to the leadership qualities of people in the Bible. Today I get Joshua. And Matt, who do you get?
Peter.
Yeah. Okay, you get the Rock. And so Matt just did a sermon on the Rock, Peter,
A sermon series.
servant series. So he's going to have a little bit of leg up because it's real fresh in his mind.
Yeah.
And so we're going to equate what they did and how it translates to leadership in the workplace and just working in general, being a human being and what qualities you can take to lead your family, to lead yourself, to lead others. And so, Matt, I'm going to let you go first, starting with Peter. What do you got for Peter?
Well, for Peter, it's pretty cool because Peter is this guy who he constantly sticks his foot in his mouth, says things he shouldn't. And yet he's the kind of guy who will lay down his life. And even though he fails and he blows it in that area, he's the kind of guy that is a risk taker. And we see that from the very beginning. So the first thing that we want to learn from Peter is to be a risk taker. Peter was the one on the boat when the storm came up and they were being tossed around by the winds and the waves and the storm. And they see Jesus off in the distance, what looks like Jesus. They aren't sure. And then Peter says, Jesus, if it's you, tell me to come out to you on the water. And so it wasn't John that did that. It wasn't James that did that. It was Peter that did that, right? And so Peter steps out of the boat. He takes a huge step of faith. Can you imagine stepping out of the onto the water? I mean,
in a storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a really good athlete as far as a water skier.
Right. Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
And it looks probably like I'm walking on water. But Peter was literally walking on the water.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. And so the other thing, being a risk taker, what that looks like in your job, it can't be a reckless risk. It has to be a calculated risk.
Right.
Now, Peter didn't have time to sit down and, test away and measure, but when God called, Peter listened. And so that's the thing is when for me as a pastor in my profession, I'm saying, God, I want you to lead me and guide me, and where you move, I'll move. Where you go, I'll go. And that's my risk. Sometimes that looks different. That looks weird to the world.
Yeah.
It doesn't look right. Like going to India doesn't make sense by American standards, but it makes sense by Jesus standards.
Yeah.
Like taking a risk to go into places where it may be dangerous. That makes sense to God. It may not make sense to us, but it makes sense to God.
And I'm going to speak into Mass Church a little bit in terms of risk taking and being someone who's stepping out in faith. Is that we live in a small town. We live in a more of an older community.
Mm-hmm.
60 plus dominates our town. Yet, at the same time, our church, God is using our church still to lean into things like healing and prophesying and talking about tongues and doing these things that is biblical and is in the Bible. And that is exactly what Peter was doing in a lot of those instances, right? He also steps in it sometimes too.
Yeah.
And sometimes, guys, in leadership, you're going to take a risk and step in it.
Yeah.
Right?
Blow it.
Tell me a time when Peter stepped in it a little bit.
Okay. So this is a big one. Right after Jesus gets done affirming Peter that he's the rock that he's going to build his church on, because Peter rightly answers Jesus, you're the Messiah, the Son of God. Yeah. And Jesus says, wow, Peter, you're the rock. You answered correctly. You were given that by our Father in heaven. And Peter, the very next moment, Jesus tells them, hey, I'm going to go to the cross. I'm going to suffer. And Peter's like, no way, Jesus, I'm not going to let you do that. There's no way you'll do that, right? In our logic, that makes sense. We would be like Peter. And Peter, of course, he sticks his foot in his mouth. And then Peter goes from being the rock that Jesus was going to build his church on, this get behind me, Satan.
Yeah.
And so you talk about
I'm mighty fallen. Yeah.
Yeah, it happens. But Peter also doubts. And when he doubts, he begins to sink.
Yeah.
Right. But we can trust that God's got us. He's, we're all going to fall. We're all going to have doubts. We're going to step in it. But God is gracious, and I'm so thankful he is.
Yes.
And so that
mercy.
Means as leaders of our organizations, you're going to have employees that mess up and blow it.
Yeah.
And so this isn't being like Peter, it's being like Jesus. Like we have to lift him up.
And I think that not only that, but as a leader, you have to take risks. You're in a leadership role for change, right? And change is risking, risking at the sake of offending, at the sake of growth. You have to be able to continue to, within the guardrails of your mission statement, which we talked about last time, you have to be willing to say, listen, we're going to grow.
Yeah.
And growing sometimes is we go through growing pains. And a lot of times I think Peter was going through growing pains, right?
Yeah.
Up on the mountain, and he's like, let's do these altars, just you don't need to talk right now. Just, we already got this thing rolling. You don't need to make it more than it is. But he was, being a risk taker and doing those things. And he was learning as it was going, because you're never fully prepared when you're taking risks.
Right.
That's the whole point of taking risks, is you can't be fully prepared. You don't know how it's going to go. And Peter was one of them.
Yeah. And part of that, knowing that you're going to fall sometimes, is keep the faith.
Yeah.
Jesus says to Peter, as he's lifting him up out of the water, he says, why did you doubt me?
Yeah.
And so for people in Christian leadership, those of us who trust in Jesus, that's our rock. Why are we losing faith? We know that God already knows that we're going to struggle. So we just keep going, and we keep grabbing onto his hand and keep taking those next steps of faith, because God is leading us. And the other side of that, as you keep the faith, if you're confident in the direction that you're going as an organization, keeping the faith means that you're going to have moments where others are going to doubt you, and you're going to doubt yourself, but you keep going in the direction that you know is right. And if you are a person of conviction, like, I know that I'm leading this organization the way that is best for the organization, is going to grow it. You're the leader for a reason. Don't doubt yourself. Keep going, because others will. They will doubt you. Yeah. And you're also going to have moments where they're like, see, this isn't the right direction, but you're seeing beyond the failure. You're seeing the victory at the end, and you keep going.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I've also heard of it, ye of little faith, right? And not necessarily size, but duration.
Yeah.
Right? And so you start off always hot, right? This is the idea. This is what we're going to do. We got them all. But now the implementation process of the idea of doing something that it takes work. It takes continuing your faith in that passion of what you're doing over time. And so we can all be slave to emotions at the moment, and a leader can be slave to that as well. Like, we were really hot for a second, now we're really not. But really good leaders, such as Peter, even though he stepped in it a few times, he kept it going the entire time.
Keep the faith. Yeah. Remembering God's in control.
Yeah.
What does God do as soon as he steps back in the boat? Storm, boom. Yep. Peace, be still. It's over.
Yep.
So it's okay. There's going to be moments of chaos and moments of peace, and really rest in those moments of peace. The next thing is guard your mouth. I can relate to Peter in this way. There's been so many times that I've said things that were not okay, that were wrong. They were laced with sin. And usually it comes from a place of pride, or sometimes it comes from a place of just not feeling adequate, or you have to self-promote. And so it's so important that we guard our mouths. In Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 1, it says, do not be rash with your mouth. Do not let your heart be hasty, and utter a word before God. For God is in heaven and you're on earth. And this is where Peter often got into trouble, is he would often say things that were not of God, and they were of his flesh, and we all do that. So take heart. The rock that Jesus built his church on struggled in this area as well. But if we can save somebody watching this podcast from saying something that's out of line. So if you're angry, take a breath, right? If you're frustrated, take a breath, and really say, is what I'm about to say, is it constructive or is it helpful?
Yeah. And seasoned with grace and kindness, right? I mean, we can say things that are direct and to the point, but they can still be kind and seasoned with all sorts of grace. Now, if people still react in a way that they feel as though they've been burned by you speaking truth and honesty with grace and kindness, then that's on them. And that's where you have to allow them to feel those things. Yeah. And so that's really cool. So we've got, being a risk taker, keeping the faith, guard your mouth. Is there any remaining points you want to make about? Sir Peter over here.
Be bold. Peter learned what real boldness was. He had an imitation boldness before he was filled with the Holy Spirit. And so he was operating out of his own strength. What I mean by that was in the Garden of Gethsemane when they came to arrest Jesus. Peter gave a lot of lip service to the fact that he wasn't going to deny Jesus, and then he was going to prove Jesus wrong by cutting off the guard's ear. And he did it. And Jesus took the ear and he put that ear back on.
Yeah.
The guy miraculously healed him. And he said, Peter, you don't understand the mission that I have. Remember what the mission was that Jesus had that you talked about?
Yeah.
He came to seek and to save the lost. Jesus was on mission to do that, and he wouldn't have been able to do that had he not went to the cross. And what Peter couldn't see was the mission that Jesus had.
Right. Or lost sight of it. Yeah.
He lost sight of his vision, but he still didn't understand it at that point. Jesus did, but what Peter's task was to do was to follow Jesus, not to decide where Jesus was going to go. And so Peter was operating out of his own understanding and his own strength. But once Jesus went to the cross and he was broken by Jesus going to the cross, Peter was broken. And then you can imagine the heartbreak that Peter, what a failure he must have felt like. But then Jesus came back and he restored Peter to his position. And then he said, Peter wants you to do something. See, then Peter learned through his failure that his job was just to follow Jesus. And so he obeyed him. And he said, go wait in the upper room. Don't go out in ministry yet, Peter. Go to the upper room. And I want you guys to wait there for me and wait for the power I'm about to send you. And so Jesus ascends to heaven. Peter obeys and the other apostles obey. They're waiting in the upper room. And the Holy Spirit falls on them. And then Peter stands up before thousands of people. And he boldly proclaims the gospel of Jesus Christ. And thousands of people, 3,000 to be exact, they were saved. And so when you're following the King, then you can do what the King does. And so we just follow, and we are bold when we know the direction that we're going. So be bold. The final one is obviously humility. Peter, of all the disciples, he knew what humility was because he was humbled. And he was such an amazing, fierce leader.
Yes.
But he was humbled.
And he felt the humility a couple times, didn't he?
Yeah. And so let me just say this. Don't make God humble you.
Yeah.
Peter writes these words from a place of brokenness in 1 Peter when he's writing to the church. And he writes in 1 Peter chapter 5, chapter 1, verses 5 and 6. He says, humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, so that at the proper time he may exalt you. The problem is when we go to exalt ourselves, we're humbled. The opposite happens. And I've seen so many leaders get humbled in that way. And pride is one of the most dangerous sins that we can commit against God because he'll humble us. And so if you're watching this and pride is something you struggle with, man, I just encourage you as a pastor, like, take that to Jesus and say, Lord, I struggle with pride. Please forgive me. Lord, help me to be humble, because I don't want you to humble me, Lord. I want to humble myself before you, that you may lift me up.
And I think that in leadership positions, that's how a stronghold of pride can get a hold of you, because you're in a position of authority. I will tell you, every superintendent that I've ever talked to that's been basically either fired or forced out, there has been, I've yet to see a humbling moment to where they said, I missed it. I messed it up. It's been a blame fest on the community, the board, the whatever, and no shared accountability. And I pray that for myself as I go through, my position is hopefully one day when someone says to me, get behind me, Satan, or someone says, you're going to do this, and I'm like, no way. And then I deny, what's happening multiple times, that I sense the humility, but I don't want it to happen. Like you said, like, we shouldn't want God to humble us, because that's a tough thing. But when it does happen, that we're able to accept it and be humble and to repent.
Yeah, in Psalms it says that, or in Proverbs it says that pride comes before the fall.
Yeah.
And man, I've seen a lot of pastors fall because of this one thing, pride.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very scary.
It
Right?
is.
Because when you fall, guess what? The organization tends to really flounder after that.
The foundation is broken. If the leader is not in charge and the leader is overtaken by the people, or if the leader is fractured in any way, the whole system can be fractured.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's why, I'm sure in your church leadership, why it's so important to have the right people on the elders board and the right people on being a pastor and I'm saying this wrong, the lead pastor, the executive pastor, whatever that hierarchy is, but you have to have the right people there.
Right. For me, one of the disqualifications immediately for somebody that we're considering for elder or deacon, and if I see pride, it's like, I'm going to hold off there. Yeah. Like, because God has a work to do in us, and pride is one of those things that can destroy a church. And it almost happened with our church a time or two with situations. And so you got to be careful because pride can do it. But Peter learned it, and we can learn from Peter. And honestly, I'm glad you're watching this podcast if you are, because if you get anything from this episode, please be careful with pride.
Yes. And Peter is the prime example of that. Yep. And so, kind of transitioning into now Joshua.
Yes.
When I say Joshua.
And he's my favorite leader in the Bible, other than Jesus.
Oh, okay. So I have some work to do. So Joshua. Yes. And I say it that way because there are some special qualities in Joshua that I want to share with everybody. So very first is courage and confidence in the purpose. So let me read this. Joshua 1:9 says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Yeah. I will tell you that Joshua led with courage, rooted in God's promise and presence. Now, as I was kind of going through, God had a promise for his people, right? And they had to be able to Joshua had to be able to help take them through his people and keeping them to like, hey, he promised us this, stay with us there. And Joshua faced so many challenges confidently. And so when I talk about leadership and when we talk about leadership, you're going to face challenges confidently because that's where challenges go. They go to the leader. Yeah. Right. They are not handled by everyone else. Right. And when we face those challenges confidently, just like Joshua did, we can encourage and motivate our team to stay calm during times of uncertainty, to keep moving forward in the direction that's supposed to be making. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, no, what about this? Let's go over here. And then the leader will say, no. We're right back where we need to be. Trust me. We're going to keep moving forward. We're going to keep going through the wilderness. We're going to keep following this cloud of God. We're going to keep doing these things. Right.
I love Joshua because you think about that, trusting and having courage. Like he was leading the Israelites into the land that God was giving them, and the land of the Canaanites, where there's these giants. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of you, but
for it. Yeah,
man, like you talk about having to have courage. And remember when they sent the spies over, and they had to spy, and they like came back and like, we can't go in there. These giants are there.
Giants there.
And Joshua took them anyway. Yeah, he's like, we're doing this. God gave us this land, man, and so we're going, and it was awesome.
And I think that's another cool thing. So in Joshua 11:15, when we talk about a great leader has obedience and accountability, as the Lord commanded his servant Moses, so Moses commanded Joshua, and Joshua did it. He left nothing undone of all that the Lord commanded Moses. Listen, sometimes we take over and there's a mess to clean up.
Wow, that's so good.
Sometimes we take over, and even though the purpose was the same at the prior, sometimes as leaders we start the process of growth, but we don't get to finish it. Yeah. Right? In your situation, you had an amazing, solid word church, and then you had to finish it with, not finish, it's never done, but you had to help complete this process with, hey, we're word and spirit. Yeah. And, in a lot of the things, and when people take over, it's typically you're taking over, there's glaring things that, listen, we all have, right? So I pay attention to certain things, in our organization, and I'm sure there's other things where people are like, ooh,
we should really be paying attention to this, maybe this. And so when a new leader comes in, you still need to continue to take on these processes, the main thing. And that can be hard. So the way to do that is to continue to be faithful and fulfilling those responsibilities. And Joshua was able to do that by following through on what was commanded to Moses and then was given to Joshua.
Yeah. So, Moses was not allowed to take the Israelites into the promised land because instead of speaking to the rock, he struck the rock that God told him for water. He was angry. And so he disobeyed the Lord. And so God said, okay, Moses, you're not going to get to lead the Israelites into the land that I promised them. It's going to be Joshua.
Yeah.
And so Moses goes up on the mountain and dies, and Joshua has to be the one to lead them. And can you imagine the weight on his shoulders? I mean, and yet I love the part in Joshua where he's going throughout the camp and he's saying, get your provisions ready.
Yeah.
We're going to do this.
It's time.
He was a leader, man.
Yeah.
Joshua was so inspirational. I can imagine being there, as he says in Joshua 24:15. He's like, as for me and my household,
we will serve the Lord.
Serve the Lord. Like, this dude was an inspirational guy.
And talk about dialed in, laser focused.
Yeah.
I know my job, my mission is to get there, right?
Yeah.
I'm going there. You're coming there with me, but we're all going there. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And the way you can do that is by the third thing, being inspiring and uniting the people, right? So every good leader, and I don't care.
That was a good transition.
What it is. Thank you very much. I don't care who you are when you're in leadership. You need to be able to have the ability to inspire and unite. So Joshua 3:5, Joshua told the people, consecrate yourselves for tomorrow. The Lord will do amazing things among you.
I love that.
Okay, so Joshua was motivating the Israelites to prepare for God's work. He was like, hey, listen, consecrate yourselves. Tomorrow we ride, right?
Yeah.
We roll it, let's go. So imagine, what is that sort of we ride moment? I will tell you, when you speak to our church, and we see these baptisms after baptisms. I mean, you're always pointing, it's like, guys, God's going to, one year, it was so cool. We're going to hit 100. They just didn't even know. And we nailed it. Like, it was like, we ride, tomorrow we're going to do this. Guys, we're going to go serve in countries and do this. And then we go. Yeah. It's just a motivating piece. And, now it's a little bit more into like, hey, we're going to prophesy and we ride, it's been outstanding. And when I kind of started, my main message that, the people, speaking of taking over, had a great predecessor before me, took care of the financial books really well. We were in a position to push the culture now. And now we're financially able to say, yes, and this is what it's going to look like. And this is how we're going to do it. And people grasp onto that. Right? They will hold on so much to the point where, is it, who's Hanky would had power, people were Paul, right?
Yeah.
So even Paul's snot rag was gonna it's gonna be good. Christ is in all of us, and Christ is using us, and we can be the hands and feet of Jesus, and we can go. But it took the inspiration and the uniting of people to do those things.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to challenge everybody else, is when you're in charge of people, a class, it doesn't matter, to inspire your team with optimism. And that's how you inspire, is optimism, not pessimism.
Right.
We're not doing this because we have to. We're not doing this because we're just picking up someone else's mess. We're doing this because it's important. We're doing this because it matters. We're doing this because it's going to have an impact.
Right.
And when we share that purpose together, that's how you build anticipation and confidence in what your organization can achieve.
Absolutely.
And that's the fun part.
Yeah.
That's the best part about leadership, is getting everyone on fire, right?
Yes.
And when you can do those things, just like Joshua did, I mean, imagine just telling the people, consecrate yourselves for tomorrow. The Lord will do amazing things among you.
That is casting vision.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, look at what is about to happen, guys. We're doing this. We're going there. And I think, if you're struggling to get your team motivated, again, go back to what is your why, and then get them on board with that why and go after that why.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
that was one of my favorite guys is Joshua.
Yeah,
and I
so
love the verse. Yes.
And so, and one of the last things I had was the Joshua 24:15, by having integrity and commitment to values.
Oh, I love
So,
yeah.
so when Joshua says in 24:15, but if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. So when he's talking about his commitment and values to what they're trying to do. And so as for you and your church, we're going to advance hope one soul at a time.
Yeah.
Right. As for me and our organization, we are building and creating a culture of confidence in not only our staff, but our students. What is your plant the flag moment? Because I feel like that's a plant the flag moment.
Yeah.
When you're talking about as a leader and it's time to commit, have the integrity to commit who you are to your values and what your mission or your mission is.
Yeah.
Like, be values driven. Like, that's what we need to be. Is your mission should be values driven,
and then have integrity and getting.
Yes.
That's really good. I think Joshua is one of those guys that not only said it, but he lived it.
Yes.
Right. He was strong in his convictions, and he was passionate in following the vision that God had given him.
Absolutely.
And he also was empowered by the prior generation that had failed.
Yeah.
Like Moses was amazing, right? We talked about how amazing was in the last podcast, but he ends up with a failure at the end of his life.
Short.
But we all fall short, right? And so I'm sure Joshua, he had some moments where he didn't get it right, but he got to carry that flag on for Moses and for all that had come before him, but most importantly for God. And so it's all about, like, for Joshua, it's so cool for me to learn from him, because as a leader, I had to learn to honor the old and step into the new.
Oh, that's a perfect way.
So I love my predecessor, Eric. He was a great man of God, a great pastor, and I wanted to honor him, and I still honor him, but I also know that God had given me a vision for where he was taking New Hope Church, and nothing was going to keep me from that.
Yeah, and so you had to move the flag.
Yeah.
You couldn't just leave it planted there.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's a process in that, and there's pain in that, but there's so much blessing in that when you just do it.
Absolutely. That is so true.
Yep.
So that is your two for the day.
Yeah.
Peter and Joshua. I've really enjoyed these last couple episodes talking about kind of the amazing heroes of the Bible over here, and just and enjoying the fact that, guys, leadership has been around since the day of time, obviously starting with Christ and leading with all the apostles and people of the Bible and doing those things. And so it's been super, super rewarding for me to be able to do this. So
me too.
Do you have any lasting statements to give to people on their way out of our episode here?
I've talked a lot today, and I like to hear myself talk, so I'm going to punch it over to you.
Well, hey, episode 13, we are only 7 episodes away from our goal of 20 for the first season. And we are just so thankful.
Share with your friends.
Yes.
Somebody that's a leader, they may could use this.
Absolutely. And so we are really appreciative of all of you guys listening. So thank you, and God bless. Welcome to Holy Grit Leadership That Lasts. Hey, thanks for listening to our podcast today. If you would like, please subscribe, rate, review, give us all the butterflies you can. We appreciate you. Thank you, and God bless.